The receipt was folded into quarters and shoved under an eggshell. It wasn't mine. It wasn't hers. It was for room 418 at the Norbridge Suites, 2 towns over. Dated 2 days before my birthday. Paid in cash. No name. But there was her favorite order from the Glass Owl Cafe printed right underneath it. Hibiscus tea, half sweet, oat milk. I know that order. She makes me repeat it when I pick it up wrong. I know what you're thinking. I shouldn't have been digging through the trash. But I wasn't. I was taking it out, like I always do, because apparently it's my thing, and I heard the paper crinkle. Not normal trash crinkle. It was deliberate. Hidden. Like something stashed during a panic. I stood there for 3 minutes holding it. Maybe longer. It felt heavy in my fingers. You'd think it was soaked in blood with how fast my pulse went. She was in the kitchen humming. Humming. She never hums. And here's the part that makes me feel like the world's most pathetic man. I put the receipt back. I didn't ask. Didn't confront. Didn't even raise an eyebrow. I stuffed it under more trash like a coward. Then went and sat at the table like everything inside me wasn't trying to collapse at once. She made me eggs. I counted her blinks. She kissed me on the forehead and asked if I wanted to go for a walk later. Like we're the kind of couple who takes morning walks and not the kind where I watch her set her phone face down every time it buzzes. I nodded. Then I threw up in the bathroom and told her it was the eggs. That night, my birthday, she handed me a wrapped gift that looked exactly like the one she gave her brother last year. Same paper, same shape. I opened it and smiled like a sitcom husband. She took a photo of me smiling, posted it, captioned it. So lucky to grow older next to you, Red Heart. I stared at that photo later and thought, you're not next to me. You're behind me. Like a knife. Around midnight, I went to take out the trash again. Not to be helpful. I had gloves on. I was looking for more receipts. And I found something else. The trash didn't lie to me. It never has. That night, it told me more than she had in the last 6 months. I was wearing gloves, latex ones from an old first aid kit. Ridiculous, I know. Like I was handling a crime scene. Which, in hindsight, maybe I was. I didn't expect to find much. I thought the receipt would be it. But just beneath an empty takeout container and a wad of tissues was a hotel-branded toothbrush, still wet in its plastic sleeve. The wrapper said, "Compliments of Norbridge Suites." I don't know why, but I opened it. There were 2 long, dark hairs stuck to the inside of the wrapper. Hers. I froze. The kind of freeze where your thoughts don't even run, they just fall. Like dominoes toppling in slow motion. Because here's the thing. Hesper doesn't stay in hotels. She hates them. Says the beds feel public, like they still smell like strangers. We've been together 6 years. I've never seen her willingly spend the night anywhere that didn't have our duvet and her peppermint pillow spray. So why the toothbrush? Why the tea? Why the cash receipt? Why the smile that doesn't reach her eyes anymore? I went back inside and sat on the bathroom floor with the toothbrush in my lap. I stared at it like it was a message in a bottle, something dropped by a version of her I didn't recognize. She knocked on the door and asked if I was okay. I shoved it behind the toilet tank and flushed the empty toilet like I was just finishing up. I said my stomach still felt weird. She told me to lie down. I watched her brush her teeth with her toothbrush. The real one. The one she keeps in the drawer under the sink. Mint toothpaste, 30 seconds flat, rinse and spit. Same routine, same rhythm. Except now, I didn't know if it meant anything anymore. I didn't sleep. Again, I kept imagining the room. Room 418. I don't know why the number sticks in my head. Maybe because it feels like coordinates to the part of my life where something broke open and started bleeding. Around 3:30 a.m., I got out of bed and looked through her purse. I didn't even hesitate this time. I was past guilt. I was looking for truth, even if it bit me. Inside, I found a receipt from a bookstore she said she stopped going to years ago. She once told me it reminded her of her ex, the one with the guitar and the self-pity. The one who used to write poems on the back of napkins and read Rilke aloud like he invented sadness. And yet, there was the receipt. From that store, just last week. A purchase for a hardcover novel I'd never seen. It was called The Art of Vanishing Without Leaving. Tell me that's not a joke the universe is playing on me. I put everything back and stood in the hallway, staring at the light leaking under the bedroom door like it was warning me. Don't come back in until you're ready to stop pretending. I didn't sleep. Again. 3rd night in a row. In the morning, she said she had to go into the office early for a team meeting. I nodded. I smiled. I kissed her on the forehead. Then I watched from the upstairs window as she drove the opposite direction. I followed her. What I saw next. I always thought following someone would feel thrilling, like in the movies. Heart pounding, windshield rain, headlights slicing through the dark. But it wasn't like that at all. It felt slow, humiliating, like I was tailing the ghost of my own marriage. Her taillights glowed a steady red pulse ahead of me, calm and casual, like she had nothing to hide. Maybe that's what got me, how easy it all seemed for her. The car hummed, and I could hear my own breath. Too loud, too human, fogging the glass. She wasn't going toward the office. I knew it the second she passed the exit that would have taken her there. Instead, she kept driving north, out of town, where the signs grew fewer, the trees thicker, and the air felt heavier somehow. The kind of road where nobody ends up by accident. I followed from 2 cars behind, close enough to see her silhouette in the driver's seat, one hand on the wheel, the other fidgeting with something near her face. Lipstick? Nervous habit? I couldn't tell. After 20 minutes, she turned into a small roadside motel. Not the kind with glowing signs and security cameras. The kind that looks like it hasn't been painted since the 90s, where every window tells a different story no one wants to hear. I drove past, pretending to be just another car, then parked behind a gas station across the street. From there, I could see her car clearly. She sat inside for almost 5 minutes before anyone approached. He was tall. That's all I could make out at first. Tall, dark coat, moving like someone who didn't have to hurry. He tapped twice on her window, and she stepped out. The first thing she did was laugh. That tiny, soft laugh I hadn't heard in months. She reached out and touched his sleeve like they'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. I don't even remember breathing. I just watched. They went inside together. Room 418. I wish I could tell you I was exaggerating, that I read it wrong, but I didn't. The number was clear, crooked on the door, brass barely holding to the wood. The same room from the receipt. The same one I told myself could have been anything else. Business, emergency, mistake. But there it was, right in front of me, swallowing her whole. I sat there for hours. Maybe 3, maybe 4. I don't know. I kept telling myself to leave, that I didn't need to see her come back out, that there was no recovery from this. But I stayed, like an idiot who needed to witness the fire that burned his own house down. At some point, my phone buzzed. A text from her. Meeting ran long. Be home soon, red heart. The heart almost killed me more than anything. The casualness of it, the punctuation of betrayal. When she finally left, it was past midnight. She looked lighter, like something inside her had unclenched. She didn't see me. I waited until she drove away before I got out of the car. I don't even know what I was thinking. Maybe I just wanted to confirm that it was real, that I hadn't hallucinated the entire thing out of paranoia. The room door was still unlocked. I shouldn't have touched it, but I did. The air inside was thick with cheap perfume and something else, mint and smoke, maybe. The bedsheet was half tucked, the window slightly open, the TV still glowing faintly with static. And there, on the nightstand, was her scarf, the one she wore on our anniversary. I picked it up. It was warm. That's how fresh everything was. Still carrying the echo of her, and whoever he was. I sat on the edge of the bed and laughed. Quiet at first, then harder, until it turned into something ugly and breathless. Because it hit me then, she hadn't just lied. She'd replaced me, down to the smallest detail. The way she laughed, the tea order, even the scarf I once said made her look like a sunrise. She'd taken all that warmth and given it to someone else. When I finally left the room, I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. I just felt hollow, like my skin was filled with echoes. Back home, she was already asleep when I walked in. I stood in the doorway and watched her breathing, slow and even, like a child's. Peaceful. And for the first time, I didn't recognize her face at all. The next morning, she asked me what I wanted for breakfast. I told her I wasn't hungry. That was the first true thing I'd said in days. But I had a plan forming. Not revenge. Not confrontation. Something colder. Something I shouldn't be proud of. And it started that night. There's a moment after betrayal where something inside you stops trying to fix anything. That's where I was. Not angry. Not sad. Just operational. Like a switch flipped. My emotions were still there, but they felt far away. Sitting in another room with the door closed. What I had left was cold, surgical attention. Every word she said, every look she gave me, I didn't absorb them anymore. I collected them. That morning, She asked if I wanted to go to the farmer's market on Sunday, like we used to do back when things were still soft between us. I smiled and said sure, but my eyes were on her reflection in the toaster. It wasn't twitching, wasn't nervous. She was comfortable, confident, the kind of calm you only have when you think you've gotten away with something. I started documenting everything that day. Nothing dramatic, just notes on my phone, timestamps, behaviors. When she left, when she came back, what earrings she wore, what excuse she used. Her lipstick color changed every time she lied. I made a spreadsheet, color-coded, labeled each entry like crime scene evidence. I wasn't even planning what I'd do with it. I just needed to have proof that I hadn't imagined the whole thing, that I wasn't the paranoid, insecure husband with too much time and too little spine. I wanted to silence the part of my brain that still asked, what if you're wrong? What if she's just distant? Wrong? I had sat on the bed she shared with another man. I had held her scarf while the walls still held the sound of her voice. And yet, she kept pretending. She started kissing me again. Small, controlled kisses like she was playing the role of someone's wife in a stage play. She didn't touch me in any real way, but she smiled more, asked about my day, left notes in my lunch like we were characters in a sitcom. One of them said, "Hang in there, I know things have been heavy lately, Red Heart." I took a photo of the note and saved it in a folder called Fabrications. That Friday, I bought a recording device. Small, discreet, one of those pin-sized ones you can drop behind furniture. I planted it under the passenger seat of her car. I don't know what I expected. A confession? A phone call to her mystery man? I just needed the silence between them to stop mocking me. That night, she left for dinner with a coworker and wore a perfume I didn't recognize. It was sweeter than usual, more floral, like something she'd spray on when she wanted to be noticed in a small room. I watched her leave through the curtains. When she was gone, I opened her laptop. No passwords. That surprised me. I didn't snoop through her files. I wasn't ready for that. But I checked the browser history. Most of it was boring. Office documents, weather searches, Pinterest boards about interior design. But buried in the middle of it was one single line that made my fingers go cold. What does emotional detachment from spouse mean? Clicked at 3:42 a.m. 2 nights ago, right after she came home late, climbed into bed, and whispered that she was just tired. She'd reached for my hand that night. I remember because I was half asleep and confused by the contact. She hadn't done that in weeks. But apparently, she was researching how to feel less. I closed the laptop. My head was buzzing. Not with rage. Not even betrayal. Just a quiet kind of dread, like standing in an empty museum and realizing all the art is fake. When she came back that night, I didn't ask how dinner was. I didn't look up from the book I wasn't reading. She sat on the edge of the couch, kicked off her shoes, and said, "You're being quiet lately. Everything okay?" I nodded. Just thinking. About what? I smiled. How lucky I am. She blinked. That hesitation again. That moment where she doesn't know which version of me she's talking to. She said nothing. Just stood up, went upstairs, and left a scent trail behind her like breadcrumbs to a secret life. The next morning, I listened to the recording. She wasn't alone in the car. And what she said to him? The audio started with the click of the engine and a burst of static. I was sitting alone in my office, blinds down, headphones on, index finger hovering just above the pause button like I was about to disarm a bomb. I had waited all day to listen. My hands were sweating. My throat was tight. Somewhere deep down, a part of me still hoped the recording would prove me wrong. That it would be quiet. That she'd be humming to herself, calling her mother, scrolling through radio stations. Anything but what I knew was coming. But it didn't take long. About a minute in, I heard her voice. Only, it didn't sound like her. It was lighter, warmer. She was laughing, a laugh I hadn't heard in so long I almost forgot what it sounded like. The kind that curls up at the edges and means something real. Then a man's voice joined in. Low, confident, relaxed in a way that made my jaw clench. He said her name, not a nickname, not babe or sweetheart. Her real name. Full, intentional, like he liked the way it sounded in his mouth. She told him she missed him. She said it so easily, without hesitation, like it belonged to 1,000 other sentences she'd said before and would say again. He asked if she'd told the husband anything yet. She laughed again, the same sharp, amused laugh she used to say for my worst jokes, and replied, "He still thinks I'm in love with him." That line, that single, Razorline's sentence gutted me more than anything else had. I paused the recording. Not because I couldn't handle more, but because I could. And that terrified me. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't broken. I was numb. My body wasn't reacting like it should have. It was like my nervous system had filed for early retirement. I sat there, motionless, staring at the wall, hearing that line repeat in my head on a loop that refused to lose volume. He still thinks I'm in love with him. I hit play again. She told him she wasn't ready yet, that it was too close to his birthday, that she needed it to feel natural, and that he'd fold eventually. She said I was starting to get suspicious, but that I was too sentimental to do anything about it. Then she said something that made my chest hollow out entirely. He's the kind of man who would rather believe a lie than admit he's been lied to. And he laughed. They both did. Like I was a character they'd written together. Like I was a footnote in their story. I listened to the rest of the ride. 15 more minutes of her joking about me, imitating my voice, telling him about my weird coffee habits, how I overuse napkins, how I triple-check the locks before bed. Every detail I thought made me. She handed over like trivia for a man who didn't even ask. When the file ended, I sat still for a long time. I wasn't sure what to feel. I was humiliated, yes. But more than that, I felt transparent. Like she'd reached into me, pulled out the softest parts, and laid them bare for someone else to poke at. I didn't cry. Not yet. But something in me shifted. Something I can't quite explain. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want confrontation. I wanted documentation. I wanted evidence so airtight that when this ended, there wouldn't be a single sliver of doubt about who ruined what. So I bought a second recorder. This one would stay in the house. I tucked it under the nightstand drawer, the one she kept her journals in. She stopped writing in them a while ago. Or so I thought. But a few weeks ago, I saw her scribbling something on the back porch. It looked like a list. The next morning, she left for her Saturday yoga class, which, according to my newly created spreadsheet, didn't actually exist at the studio anymore. I waited until her car was down the street before I went into our bedroom and opened the drawer. The journal was still there. And inside, between two pages that stuck together like old secrets, I found something that made my legs go weak. It wasn't a list. It was a goodbye letter, dated 3 weeks from today. I didn't touch the journal. Not at first. I just stared at it. Open on the bed now, the page stiff from being pressed shut for so long, the ink still sharp like it had just dried. I read the first line over and over again because I couldn't believe it didn't start with my name. No, dear Bram. No to my husband. Just a date at the top, underlined, November 3rd. 3 weeks from now. She was planning to leave. I expected sorrow, maybe guilt, even some sense of conflict. But the letter was cold. Not angry. That would have at least meant she cared. This wasn't rage. This was calculation. She was preparing her exit like someone packing for a long, luxurious trip they had earned. She didn't say where she was going, but she listed things she needed to do before departure. Talk to lawyer, confirm timing. Finalize second account. Transfer titles quietly. Avoid unnecessary confrontation. He'll overreact emotionally. And then, underline twice. Do not give him an opportunity to spiral. He thrives in chaos. That line. That one cut different. Because I realized then, she didn't see me as someone she once loved, not even someone she once tolerated. She saw me as a liability. A problem to be managed. Contained. She was writing about me like I was a task, not a person. There were no apologies. No explanations. Just lines about logistics, exit strategy, and what she could live without if it gets messy. I was one of those things, apparently. I stared at the page until my eyes burned. Then I took a photo of it with a second phone, one I had purchased recently, prepaid, unregistered, kept in a locked drawer. I hadn't even told my brother about it. No one knew. It was my fail-safe, the only place I could store the truth without worrying it might be deleted. When I heard her car pull into the driveway, I closed the journal, placed it back exactly the way I found it, and went downstairs to boil water like I'd been making tea the whole time. She walked in sweaty, glowing, holding a smoothie. She kissed me on the cheek like she hadn't just mapped out my removal from her life in 12 clinical bullet points. Green mango, she said, holding up the cup. Want a sip? I shook my head and smiled. You love that one, don't you? She nodded. It reminds me of summer. I almost asked, which summer? The one where you decided I was replaceable? But I didn't. I smiled again, told her I was going to run some errands. and left the house without looking back. I drove aimlessly for hours. No music, just my hands on the wheel and the image of her letter playing on loop in my mind. Her handwriting used to be beautiful to me, round, floral, a little chaotic. Now it looked like a surgeon's notes. Clean, neat, and completely sterile. Around 4 p.m., I parked in front of the Norbridge Suites. Same room still existed. Same number on the door. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. I wasn't here for closure anymore. I was building a case. Not legally, emotionally, philosophically. I needed to know everything before she left. I needed to hear it all. Every lie, every whisper, every plan she thought I'd be too soft to notice. So I made a decision. One I'm still not sure I'm proud of. I contacted the front desk. Told them I was investigating an infidelity situation. I offered to pay in cash for any check-in data regarding room 418 over the past 60 days. The man at the desk, early 20s, acne scars, nervous, told me that wasn't allowed. So I added a few bills. He looked around and said, I can't give you the guest names, but I can tell you that someone's reserved that room every Thursday and Saturday for the past 3 months. Same time block. Same payment method. Cash. No digital trail. No name. Just predictable, habitual betrayal. It was a ritual. She wasn't just seeing him. She was building a life around him. Thursdays and Saturdays. A schedule. A rhythm. And all I got were Sunday nights, when she was tired and quiet and full of someone else's attention. I left the hotel and sat in my car in the dark parking lot. Engine off. Windows cracked. The silence was deafening. Because now I knew everything. Except who he was. But that would change soon. Because the next thing I did guaranteed I'd find out. I didn't sleep the night after visiting the hotel. Not even in fragments. My body wouldn't allow it. It knew too much. Knew she was next to me in bed, curled toward the wall, her breath rising in soft, steady waves, like nothing was wrong, like we still belonged to the same life. Every inhale felt like theft. Every exhale, a countdown. I lay there for 7 hours, wide-eyed, still, my back to her, staring at the corner of the ceiling where the paint peeled just slightly. I counted the cracks. 43. And sometime around 5 in the morning, I made a decision. If she wasn't going to give me the truth, I would take it. All of it. But I'd do it quietly. I wasn't looking for confrontation anymore. That felt too small. This wasn't a fight. This was a disappearance in progress. She was already halfway gone. I wasn't trying to stop her anymore. I just wanted to know what version of me she was leaving behind. What story she'd tell about me when she was gone. So I started watching her like a stranger. Every gesture, every pause, every pattern. I mirrored her silence. I agreed with everything she said. I acted tired when she acted tired. I smiled when she smiled. I became agreeable, invisible, and it worked. She got careless. She left her tablet unlocked one night while showering. Normally, she keeps it with her, in her bag, zipped, on silent. But that night, she forgot. Maybe because she was rushing. Maybe because she no longer saw me as a threat. I didn't snoop. I harvested. I took screenshots. Dozens. Notes, calendar entries, old message drafts. And then, tucked inside the Notes app, under a folder called Archive, in all caps like it was sacred, I found a single note that froze me in place. It was titled For the Day I Leave. The note read like an instruction manual for ending a marriage without setting off alarms. She had scripts, emotional deflections, safe phrases. She had paragraphs prepared for our mutual friends. Even a few lines about what to tell my family. Things that made me sound like I had emotionally checked out, like I was unavailable, self-absorbed, distant. A man who drove her away slowly. And then came a name. One word, buried at the bottom of the note. Calder. I read it 5 times, thinking maybe it was a typo. Or maybe a place. But then I searched it in her contacts. There he was. No photo. Just a number, a work address, and an email, not a personal one. It was a university email. The same one she used to work at before we moved out of the city. I remembered her saying she burned out of academia. Turns out, she didn't burn out. She just rerouted her passions. I found 2 emails from him in her inbox, both marked confidential. One of them included a link to a Dropbox folder with photos. I clicked it. The first image was of her. Not naked, not inappropriate, somehow worse. She was laughing, mid-sentence, coffee in hand, wearing the same scarf I thought she'd lost last winter. The caption, written by him. You in this light. I don't think I've ever loved a moment more. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. That moment, frozen in pixels, named in love, was more intimate than anything she'd given me in years. It wasn't sexual. It was tender. And that tenderness wasn't mine. When she came out of the shower, I was already back in bed, pretending to be half asleep. She smelled like eucalyptus. She kissed my shoulder. I didn't move. She said, "You're quiet lately." And I mumbled, "Just tired." She whispered, "I love you." And I didn't respond. That was the first time I let the silence answer for me. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the university. I sat in my car outside the humanities building for 4 hours, watching faculty come and go. None of them were Calder. I didn't know what I was going to do if I saw him. I wasn't planning violence. That's not who I am. But I wanted to see him. Just once. I wanted to see the man she had built this second life with. When I finally saw someone matching the LinkedIn photo I'd found, he wasn't tall. He wasn't impressive. He wore worn brown shoes and glasses and a coat that didn't fit. But he walked with confidence. And when he laughed at something a colleague said, I recognized the sound. It was the one she gave him. The one she'd taken from me. I stayed until he left. I didn't approach him. I just watched him walk away, keys swinging in one hand, whistling a tune I didn't recognize. When I got home, she was already making dinner. Pasta, garlic bread, a sprig of basil on each plate. She was humming. I sat across from her at the table and smiled. She asked what I did that day. I told her I cleaned the garage. She kissed her fork and said, "Finally, you've been putting that off forever." I told her, "Some things just have to get sorted eventually." She nodded and said, "Well, good. I'm proud of you." And I looked at her, this woman I had memorized and unlearned and restudied like a crime scene. And I said, "I know you are." Because now I had everything. The voice recordings, the screenshots, the journal, the Dropbox photos, the calendar with her exit date, the man's name, the emails, the lies, the truth, all of it. And I wasn't going to stop her. I was going to let her go, exactly the way she planned to. Except I'd be the one holding the pen when the story ended. The morning she planned to leave, I made her coffee, just like I always used to. Dark roast, no sugar, splash of almond milk, cinnamon on top. I even warmed the mug in the microwave for 10 seconds like she liked, so it wouldn't feel cold and sad in the hands. That was her phrase. Used to be a charming quirk. Now it was a reminder of the thousands of small ways I'd tried to love her, even after she stopped seeing me. She came down the stairs in soft footsteps, suitcase already by the door. No panic. No drama. She smiled like she was heading to a conference, like she'd be back Sunday evening with stories and hotel shampoo. I handed her the coffee. She took it without hesitation. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "You?" "Yeah," she said, glancing at her phone. "I think it's time. Don't you?" I smiled. "It is." She paused, like she was waiting for me to beg, cry, break. But I didn't, because by then, I'd already removed myself from the wreckage. Quietly, carefully, piece by piece. I didn't expose her. I didn't corner her with the recordings. I didn't print the photos or forward the emails. I didn't post the receipts or burn the scarf or scream in the street outside the university. Instead, I spoke with a lawyer. Quietly, privately. I secured my finances, protected what was mine, made copies of everything, stored them with someone I trusted. And then I prepared for what mattered most. Rebuilding without her. She took her suitcase. She kissed me on the cheek. She said, "I hope you'll be okay." And I said, "I already am." It caught her off guard. I could see it in the way her eyes flicked down, the way her shoulders lost tension, the way her voice faltered when she said goodbye. Because I think, deep down, she expected to be the victim in her own story. She expected to leave behind a wreck of a man, weeping, spinning, unraveling. Instead, she left behind someone awake. She drove away without music. I watched from the window as her car turned the corner and disappeared for the last time. I stood there for a long while, not waiting for her to come back, just breathing. The silence didn't hurt anymore. It felt open, like space, like possibility. The house felt different, too. Not haunted, not broken, just quiet. For the first time in years, it wasn't full of doubt. That night, I slept with the windows open, cold air on my face, blankets tucked tight. I fell asleep listening to the wind move through the trees. No more recordings. No more second phone. No more waiting. Just sleep. And in the morning, I didn't make 2 cups of coffee. I made one. I sat on the porch in a sweater I hadn't worn in months. Sunlight hit the railing. The birds were louder than usual. Or maybe I'd just forgotten how to listen. I didn't check my phone. Didn't reread the evidence. I opened a notebook and wrote 6 words. She left. I stayed. I healed. And for once, that was enough.